Let's get some perspective now on how the Obama inauguration may stack up against others throughout our nation's history. Here to talk about that is Jim Bendat, author of Democracy's Big Day, the inauguration of our president. Jim, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
You know, you have a very special focus in your history, your love of this particular event. Why is that?
It's a special day. It only happens once every 4 years. We have our own unique way of doing things in America. We have our election in November. Our inauguration is always on January 20th. It used to be March the 4th, but a lot of other countries, they do it quite different ways.
Yeah. You know, some quirky things have happened. Andrew Jackson, pretty wild party after that one.
That's considered the wildest inaugural party in history. In those days, they used to have receptions at the White House in the afternoon. And that was the first time that we had a true Washington outsider come in as president. And his followers came in and they trampled the White House that day. They were wearing their raggedy clothes and muddy boots. They wrecked the carpets. They wrecked the curtains. They were drinking up a storm. And then finally somebody got the brilliant idea, in order to end the fiasco, of putting a big tub of whiskey out onto the White House lawn. And slowly but surely everybody left.
Yeah, we won't see that this time. William Henry Harrison.
Well, that's pretty sad, of course. He was our oldest president at the time of his election. He was 68 years old. This is in 1841. He gave an inaugural address of more than 2 hours in length. Normally, they're only about 15 minutes, but he spoke for too long. He went to all the inaugural balls that night, which was a record number of 3 at that time. You could say he didn't know his limitations. He caught pneumonia and died after just 1 month in office.
You know, there's a lot of talk this week about President Kennedy, reflecting back on those words from that inaugural address. It was an interesting inauguration back then, too.
It was. We remember the inaugural address, but there were a lot of other crazy things that happened that day. When Cardinal Cushing gave the invocation, there was a little fire in the podium area. On the videotape, you can see smoke. You wouldn't know it from listening to the words of Cardinal Cushing, because he continued on without a hitch as marshals quickly put out the fire, which was part of an electrical short. Then you had Lyndon Johnson, who botched the inaugural oath that day, the vice presidential oath. He's supposed to say, he's supposed to promise to support our government without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Those are the magic words. But Lyndon Johnson just said, without any mental reservation, whatever. And then there was Robert Frost, the first poet to ever recite a poem at an inauguration. He didn't even get to deliver the poem that he had written for the occasion, because he couldn't read what he had written. It had snowed the night before in Washington, but on an inauguration morning, it was a bright sunny day with the sun reflecting off of the fresh snow. He couldn't read it. Instead, he delivered another poem.
And last thing, in inaugurations, recent inaugurations, you saw President Jimmy Carter and his wife make the trek, the long trek after his inauguration along the parade route. The first and really only president to do that.
They are the only ones. It was certainly the most famous thing that ever happened, on that inauguration day. And some people might think it's the most famous thing of the Carter presidency.
Are you looking for big things Tuesday?
Well, Barack Obama has proven himself to be an amazing orator, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gives an inaugural address for the ages.
All right, Jim Bendat, thank you very much. The book is called Democracy's Big Day. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Brett.
Well, you are Fox News.